Welcome to the FiveStack. My name is Dean. That is apparently my backup dancer, Zev Shalev, who's, I get jealous every time we start these podcasts. I can't wear tight shirts for body reasons. You're always in the tight shirts. You always look like a middle-aged snack, if you will. And
A
and I
middle-aged snack. That's what I've
snack.
aspired to all my life. It's called a middle-aged snack. So I appreciate that. But it's a look I've been wearing for many years now, and it's comfortable for me. And I wear black t-shirts wherever I go. So I
Yeah,
did
I
a long
did.
sleeve. That's not my thing.
Same with me. My girlfriend gets angry at me all the time. She's like, "Do you have any other colors other than that uniform that you wear all the time? Black shirt, jeans." I'm like, "Actually, I really don't." But I'm saying is that I wear this to hide certain shapes. You wear that to accentuate certain shapes. People like you bother people like me, where I'm like, "Man, we wear the same clothes, but he looks so much better in them." So anyway, good for you for staying in
Well,
shape. I
maybe
feel
going to
bad
the
about
gym,
myself.
go to the gym with me. We'll work out together. We don't only have to do the show. We can work out. We can do a
Do
live
you do
workout
that?
show.
Do you go to the gym? Like when do you find time to go to the gym?
I
Because
try
you
to
do
go
this all the time.
I try to go to the gym maybe 3 times a week, and I just do it
Okay.
in the building here, and it's fine for me. And it's my little minute of sanity. If I don't do it, I suffer, and everyone around me suffers. So it's a good
Yeah.
thing for me to do. It de-stresses, and I come up with some good ideas when I'm working out. So creatively, it's inspiring in that way too. So
Yeah. I just don't like being sweaty anymore.
no.
I'm at that age where you're like, I don't like the winter. I don't like being uncomfortable. I don't like sweating. Listen, what I'm saying here is I'm very soft, right?
Well,
I'd love to be a Zeb Shalev guy where you grind it out in the gym for 3 4 days. My idea of his workout is going for a nice walk, listening to a podcast, and not sweating.
let me tell you something about the secret why I wear black t-shirts. It's because I don't like the sweat underneath my armpits that show
Ah,
elsewhere. So, it's a good way of hiding that. So if I wear any colors or light colors,
yeah.
if you're stressing out a little bit, I start to sweat. So we don't like sweat. Middle-aged
No,
men,
no,
middle-aged stacks like us don't like this.
couple middle-aged snacks here talking about how we don't like the sweat pit march.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
welcome to
you're
the
the real,
sub.
yeah,
What's
sorry,
that?
I was going to say you're the real snack. I'm not the snack, but go ahead. Tell everyone about
No,
the
we're
snack
both a
and
couple
the
snacks.
ride.
Well, listen, the five stack with a couple of snacks today. We've got some pretty interesting stuff. We're going to talk. I thought we were done talking about vaccines. We're talking about vaccines today.
Yeah.
We're going to go back to Signalgate because that holy shit blew up this afternoon with some people in front of Senate committee hearing going, maybe I perjured myself. We've got that. Canada came out hard against Elon Musk and Tesla today, which made me very, very happy. And we'll tuck a couple of other things in there too. I know you're busy today. I don't know where you want to start, but you're driving this boat,
You
fella. So
know
give
what?
it to me.
There's a lot more coming up later on. I'm also going to tell people about what the new spin is from the GOP, what they're trying to say happened with Signalgate, and that's coming up later. But it'll also be our first story today. Oh boy,
Something
bang!
happened here. Bang.
Something happened.
Yeah, yeah,
Hope,
yeah.
hope you're okay. Okay, so let's do the Signalgate thing at the top here because out this morning, Goldberg showed up with his many previously unreleased texts showing what everyone had thought we knew, which was that Hegseth really shared what seemed to be really important classified details of an attack just hours, maybe at least half an hour,
Yeah.
before the attack took place. And it's pretty clear if you haven't seen them. I wish I could show them to you in here, but I can't. But it gives us also a detailed list of who was on that call, all 19 people. Some people we knew about. I was interested to see Susie Wiles, the White House chief of staff, was on that call. If she was on that call, you better believe Donald Trump knew about that. Rubio was on that call, which we knew, but I didn't know he was that much involved in it. But there he is.
He was in the chat group.
Yeah,
Rubio
yeah,
was in the chat group too.
yeah, yeah, which is interesting. I didn't know that until I saw this a little while ago. Obviously, other people we haven't heard about, like Joe Kent, the nominee for the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. Stephen Miller was in the group, which is also interesting. There's Scott Bessent, which we spoke about before. Why is the
Yeah.
U.S. Secretary of the
Treasury.
Treasury there?
Yeah.
And so
No
was his
idea.
chief of staff. And apparently that had something to do with the fact that they were trying to get these maritime routes secured. And that's why they feel like the Treasury was involved. But still very surprising to see that they're involved. And there's one guy that I've never heard of, Jacob Schneider, at least that's who they think it is. He's only known as Jacob, and he's the White House Director of Rapid Response. I don't know what that means, but that's who that was on that list. So The one that stands out is Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor in chief of The Atlantic. Still, people don't know why he was on there and how he got on there. Schools of thought are different. Some people say that the reason that um, it's not, sorry, Waltz is doing his damnedest to say that he's never even spoken to Goldberg, he doesn't know who Goldberg was, is because he's the guy who was leaking a lot of the stuff to Goldberg. And that's why he was in the contact list in the first place. And that's why the president is not happy with him and may be wanting to ditch him because he's worried that he might be a leaker. You may have seen him yesterday on Fox News saying that he takes full responsibility for everything that happened.
Yep.
Yet, despite that, he's still there. He still hasn't resigned, which is kind of shocking.
Yeah, no, it's not really that shocking when you consider it's the Trump administration, and they bend reality at will. Fascinating. Imagine being so criminally incompetent you start a shadow government using Signal like it's your fucking fantasy college football league. Like, this is really one of the greatest incidences. This is one of the worst events in the history of intelligence of the United States of America, just to put that in perspective. And not a lot of people are talking about it in those terms because on one side, you've got a group of idiots that are going, no big deal. But on the other side, you've got, career intelligence employees, you've got Democrats, you've got everybody that's got a brain. The judiciary is going, whoa, whoa, not only is this really bad, but you guys lied about how bad it was. And then the guy that outed this whole thing came back with receipts proving you liars a second time. And not just liars a second time, but between the first set of screenshots that the Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg put out that confirmed he was part of this chat group, he was vilified, reputationally slandered. Pete Hegseth was like, hey, he's been widely discredited. He's a piece of shit. He's garbage. He's nothing. He's nobody. None of that stuff happens. There were no war plans, confidential war plans settled. So because Jeffrey Goldberg is a badass, he decides to call that bluff. Hegseth's bluff, Trump's bluff, Tulsi Gabbard's under oath bluff, Ratcliffe's under oath bluff. Every single person that tried to commit some kind of reputational harry-carry for this Mr. Jeffrey Goldberg got it right upside the face today when he actually posted specific war plans that he said he wasn't going to post because they were so sensitive he couldn't do it the first time. So what he said was, right after everybody came for him, he's like, you know what, fuck it. I'm gonna put these things out and see what happens. So he puts them all out in a New Atlantic post. And today, Tulsi Gabbard, Ratcliffe, and a bunch of other morons that are part of Trump's cabinet that are involved in this chat group were before the Senate hearing committee. And oh my God, Tulsi Gabbard was swimming today. Everybody that was asked about this when they said, really? So yesterday you told us that there were no specific war plans in this text group. No harm, no foul. Don't worry about it, even though you shouldn't have been using an unencrypted app that wasn't government issue, whether it was high side or a skiff. So today we have this receipt. Explain this to me. And I don't know if you saw Senator Crow, Jason Crow, he went through it line by line by line today. And Tulsi Gabbard was shitting herself. She was like, I don't remembering that part that I didn't remember, and I'll have to go back and remember all the remembering I didn't remember. And there was silence, like stunned silence in that Senate hearing committee because everybody was there the day before. And you're looking at literal receipts of Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, putting out war plans in a chat group that was unsecured. And today, and here's the great part, not only was it another cock up on the Hill today, but the really funny part, the great part for me, is that every single one of those cabinet ministers and members, not ministers, I'm in Canada, pardon me, that was involved in that chat group, almost all of them have their personal information now publicly available online. Their phone numbers, their addresses, data, text messages, all the stuff that the government of the United States has tried so hard to protect. All that stuff, because of this, is now public knowledge, whether it be Russia, whether it be anonymous, whatever the situation is, it's out there. So not only is it the biggest failure in intelligence in the history of the United States, it was so incredibly unavoidable, and now the cover-up of the cover-up has been blown wide open by Jeffrey Goldberg. So, you're not just seeing people get ranged for resigning. I'm hearing rumors of the not insurrection act, the Espionage Act of 1917, also being mentioned with a lot of these people. Now, how that happens when Trump and the GOP and MAGA own the United States of America, I don't know. I can't speak to that. But the language that they're using now, when it comes to not just the cover up, but the failure, the intelligence failure, and the intentional intelligence failure, is getting a lot louder and a lot stronger. So I'm excited to see what happens, because this was about as damning a 2 days as you've seen of the disaster of the first month and a half of the Trump administration.
Look, I mean, yesterday we saw these guys dancing around trying to protect Hegseth, and today they were not doing that because they realized
No,
how cooked they were yesterday. And basically, they had, it looked to me like a quite a good case of perjury that they were developing around themselves
that was
yesterday.
yesterday.
But yeah, for lying. Today they sort of they're trying to hang out Hegseth out to dry now today, because they're like, oh, he's the guy who can decide whether stuff's classified or declassified. So go ask him. Meanwhile, oh my gosh,
I'm breaking shit.
you're breaking shit everywhere.
Sorry, keep going.
No, so the whole thing is just, it blows my mind that these guys in 24 hours went from, hey, we had no classified information, to he's the guy who declassifies things. It also blows my mind that there's not louder calls for them to be resigning. I mean, they lied in front of Congress. It's a law. It's a perjury law. You can't do it in front of Congress. This is a national security issue. And what you're saying about the Espionage Act is really interesting, because these guys basically work for Russia. I mean, yes, they're in charge of the ODNI and in charge of the CIA, but we all know who Tulsi Gabbard really reports to. We all know who Witkoff reports to, and we certainly know where Trump's allegiances lie. So, is it possible in that case to really go after them? Was it intentional that they did the signal group in order to leak this information to Vladimir Putin? It seems like that's a very good reason to do this on your personal phones that could be compromised, and on a signal group or a commercially available app that could be compromised too. Otherwise, you might consider just going to the SCIF like you would normally do, or get on the military grade Signal version, the Signal app that they have. And there's a lot of ways to do that, but they didn't. They chose to do it in the most compromisable way, in a way that Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin could really read into what they were doing and what they were saying. So I think that's what's happening. Some of the lines here are incredible. I'll find some for you here. What did they say? Let me go here. They were talking about sources and methods and locations that weren't revealed. So there aren't no sources. I mean, these are the sources. The sources are Pete Hegseth. So, you don't need to get very much other kinds of sources. But in terms of the locations, it's true, there are no locations. But what there is it says, weather favorable, just confirmed with CENTCOM, we are a go for mission launch. So right at the start of the mission, which is probably the most compromisable part of that mission, they're off there saying, hey, we're about to go. This is 11:44 that comes out. 12:15, half an hour later, the F-18s launch the first strike package. So it gives people half an hour warning before the initial attack happens, and these F-18s launch, probably longer by the time they get there. It takes about till 1:45, so it's now an hour after the initial alert goes out that they're about to go and that the mission is on. And then at 1:45, he's saying the trigger-based F-18 first strike window starts, and then the target, who's a terrorist, and is in his known location, and so this should be on time. So they are saying who the targets are. They're not saying exactly who they are, but and they're not saying exactly where it's happening. But boy, it does say also the weapon type, which is an MQ-9S, whatever that is, or for F-18. So I mean,
and they said there was no payload information, right? There was no weapon payload information. There was none of that information. It's all there, right? And he said the terrorist is in his house. Well, there's some location, as vague as it is, there's location. But these are literally confidential, top secret war plans. And he's putting them out, and he's updating people as the war plans are executed at the same time. So not only did he pre-grease everybody with the war plans in the chat group, because everybody's so fucking lazy and dumb over there, he's also updating people in real time. Payload delivered.
It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. And then the second strike starts. So how many terrorist targets are there in these Houthis? You think that they would just be the leaders that we're going after anyhow.
Yeah.
If Putin or anybody else has this information, how easy is it to get it to the Houthi leadership who they're connected to via the Iranian Revolutionary Guard? We know this. We know that the Russians support the Houthis through the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and this is how they would get information directly to them pretty quickly. It's kind of crazy. Then he goes on to this thing which is kind of funny. He says VP building collapse had multiple positive ID. Pete Carilla, the IC, amazing job. Which is then so JD Vance says what? Then Michael Waltz says typing too fast. The first target, their top missile guy. We had positive ID of him walking into his girlfriend's building, and it's now collapsed. So they're giving away who the target is. Clearly, this operation is still ongoing today, and here they are already talking about who they've gone after. Um, and then JD Vance does the excellent, and then comes Michael Waltz's emojis with the fist and the American flag and the burning flame.
Yeah,
It's
keep in mind, like it wasn't just the Houthi, missile guy that they killed. They killed his girlfriend. They killed a
right.
bunch of other people in that building. Said the building collapsed, and they're doing emojis. They're doing like the American flag emojis and the muscle emojis and the fist pumping emojis, just to give you some context about how these fucking morons value life. On top of and like the minimization, it's like a war game, that they're playing out. It is. It's a war game that these guys are playing out with all their friends, and they're giggling and doing smiley face emojis as they're gainfully murdering terrorists. I guess I get that. I understand that. I've got guys that I've talked to, that friends of mine that were in the army. There's a collegial aspect to that war theater. I get that. I think a lot of people do. If you know people in the army, if you served, I get it. It's totally understand. These are not soldiers. These are supposed to be the Secretary of Defense. This is supposed to be the DNI. It is supposed to be people who are cabinet ministers, members. These are executives of the government and of the United States of America. And they're joking around about it as they're giving real-time updates of an operation that they leaked into a chat group to a reporter who's watching all of this happen. These are America's closest secrets. People die for these things.
Yeah, Steve McLeod is just saying here in the chat that they act like it's a PS game, and it's true. These guys are acting like they're playing a video game, like they're bros in a high school basement, basically just playing a video game and treating these targets like they're non-existent human beings. And then even if that's not bad enough, the fact that they gave away all this classified information, the damage it's now done with Europe. Because here's the vice president of the United States saying, that he is tired of bailing Europe out again. And let's just make sure our messaging is tight here. And if they are thinking that we can do upfront to minimize risk to Saudi, and anything we can do to minimize the risk to the Saudi oil facilities, we should do it. And then Hegseth says, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic. But Mike is correct. We are the only ones on the planet on our side of the ledger who can do this. Nobody else even close. The question is timing. And then it goes on. But Europeans are pretty pissed at this because they've done a lot for America, a lot for America along the way. They've been allies in many wars. When America calls them to do an alliance, they are always there. They have fought so many wars alongside Americans. And then to call this freeloading is just bullshit. This
Well,
is
dude, and not only bullshit. It's you're not paying attention to history. America wouldn't be America
right.
had Benjamin Franklin not coerced France to come on over and help him beat the shit out of the British, who sent them all the way up to Canada. Hi, how you doing? That's us. Nice to see you. And then Caroline Levitt, about a week ago, talking about how the researcher from France was pissed off, and she says maybe you should tell the researcher he'd be speaking German if it wasn't for us. I mean, the disrespect, and that's really the line item for me through all of this, Zev, is the disrespect that this administration has for intelligence, for processes, for people, for countries, for history, for context, and for the very foundational purposes, reasons, and cultures that put them in the position that they're in today. And that's really kind of one of the things that through lines for me when I think about where America is today and where their standing is in the world. But I also kind of understand a couple of other things. This was always America. For some reason, we have this revisionist history, if you're a Cold War baby, like I am, like you are, that says America's the shining city on the hill, freedom, democracy, a place where everybody can go to, they're running around the world saving other countries and themselves or the world police. They never were. They never ever were up until post World War II, and that in itself was just the facade that they curated while they destroyed other countries, while they sent the CIA in to do the dirty work of getting rid of certain leaders in certain places, while they invaded Afghanistan and Iraq and weapons of mass destruction. I mean, we blame Russia, and we should. They're a terrorist state. But the United States isn't far behind, and they have always been there. They're an isolationist state. They had to be begged to get into World War I. They had to be begged and bombed in Pearl Harbor to get into World War II. And they've lost every singular war they've tried to fight on their own, whether it be Vietnam, whether it be Korea, whether it be Afghanistan, whether it be Iraq. I mean, dude, we're not talking about a country that's a 9 dressed like a 10. We're talking about a country that has always been a 3 dressed like a 9. Specifically when we talk
Let me
about
disagree with you a
democracy.
little bit. Let me disagree with you a little bit here, because look, everything that we in the West hold dear in the last 70 years, all the liberal rights, all the liberalization, all the freedoms we've gotten, can really be attributed to the United States and their drive towards, more liberal government, and democracy. That's clearly been the case, and it's hard to argue otherwise. We would still be in a pretty primitive state if it wasn't for the United States pushing for these sort of liberal-minded ideas. And for that, there's a lot of credit that they deserve. And whether they fought those wars ideologically or through Cold Wars or through deterrence, or whether those actual, fighting on the ground, they have sacrificed so many lives in the pursuit of that freedom. And, those wars you mentioned on the border of China and Russia, I mean, those were traps. Basically, you get lured into a trap in Vietnam, and suddenly you're in a quagmire that China and Russia have made. Same thing with Afghanistan. Same thing with Korea. These are countries that, where they are placed puts America at a great disadvantage. And I think America's been naive a lot of the time. I think they've been lured into wars in the Middle East, because they wanted to do good, but they failed because they were given wrong intelligence. They were, enticed by people who couldn't be trusted. I think there's been a lot of misguided foreign policy. But at the end of the day, the actual overall the effect that America has had on the world has been incredible. They have given the world real capitalism, in a sense, real freedom, and really they're the only country that doesn't answer to a royalty, to some sort of pre-existing aristocracy. They are a very unique entity, and they need to be protected because of those freedoms that we all love so much. That's where they come from. That is why China and Russia wanted to install Donald Trump in America, because they want to crash all that. The one thing that those authoritarian countries really hate is America and its freedoms and its ideology. And if they can make America just as bad as they are, they will call it a win. So they need to crush all the freedoms, crush all the voting rights. And he's doing it already this week with that new voting bill that he just introduced. They are going to do everything they can to make America look like the worst country in the world in the eyes of the rest of the world, so they could look better. But the truth of it is, we all lose if America disappears. We need America. America is the shining beacon on the hill, is what we need to drive us forward in terms of the freedom of man and the liberalization of our world, because that has worked for us. That has worked for the world and for the people of the world over and over again. And if we stop that now, we're really in trouble.
You know what, and it's not that I disagree with you, but I kind of do on just a couple of different points. And thank you for pushing back. We need more of that. We can't just keep agreeing. Is I would say to you, you're correct. For the past 70 years, since the post World War II, America has really tried to shift into this idea that they are a country that loves freedom, supports humanity, supports progressive causes around the world. But the benefit to them in that is that they get to have army bases and missiles in and around different areas of the world. That's what USAID was for, as well as doing the right thing, as well as protecting national interests. That's what Radio Free Europe was for, as well as protecting democratic interests. But that's been the last 70 years. All the rhetoric that you hear now from J.D. Vance and everybody in the Trump administration, the Project 2025 crew, is about a return to those other values. When America was an isolationist state, when America didn't let women vote, when women didn't have body autonomy, That's what I'm talking about. That's Russia. That's pre-World War II America to some extent as well. Sure, they had freedoms, but listen, the CIA, the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover. I mean, they had files on everybody too. Like this is a democratic state, but at the same time, the people that are there understand that they don't want the world going that far. They don't like America and as far as they've come, and they don't want to be the world police anymore. It's really a return to the pre-World War II, idealistic isolationist values of the United States.
Even more than that, I think what they're trying to go for is this pre-World War II empire, a state of mind, which is something that Vladimir Putin really wants to do. Vladimir Putin, and that's why there's such ideological alignment going on between Putin and Trump and Musk, is this idea that, we don't need democracies. People are sort of useless. They're only good for cannon fodder. What we need is great empires, and we build great empires on the back of those humans, and we sacrifice those humans on the battlegrounds of Ukraine or on Canada or Greenland or Mexico or wherever. Those people have no rights, have no value. Those people are just good for the greater good of our empire, and that is why Donald Trump is so into this North American empire that he's building. I mean, people aren't really registering. When he talks about Greenland and he talks Canada, he wants basically all of North America. And then towards the south, he talks about the Panama Canal. Well, there's a few countries in between the Panama Canal and America. He's going to take those too. So why they're doing the Insurrection Act and that military zone along the southern border is to be able to stage those attacks on the southern border, to start taking over our neighbors' countries, and to sacrifice American lives again, this time on the home front, for reasons that are irrational, for reasons that make no sense. His idea of why he wants to own Canada yesterday was revealed to be a giant fraud by his own Director of National Intelligence, who said that there is no fentanyl coming across the border from Canada into the United States. This is the reason he's saying he needs Canada to be the 51st state. He's making shit up in order to justify this idea of greatness that Vladimir Putin has put in his head, or some criminologist has put into their heads. And this is what they're pursuing around the world. And that is why it's so dangerous. What they're doing is destroying America from the inside out. They've put a president into the White House that is busy eating away at America. They're destroying Social Security. They're destroying military. They're cutting back our soft power around the world. Our number 4 story of the day, which is about vaccines and about how they've cut back on this incredible vaccine program that has given vaccines to the entire planet. The Trump administration announced plans to cut U.S. financial support for Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, as part of a broader reduction in foreign aid. This decision, detailed in a 281-page document, significantly impacts global health initiatives, including vaccinations for children in developing countries and malaria control programs. It could lead to over 1.2 million child deaths in the next few years due to lack of vaccination. The move is perceived as favoring domestic tax cuts over international health. Well, of course. But what it's also doing is destroying America's ability to influence Africa, America's ability to influence the rest of the world and the developing world. And the image that America's had all along of being a place that's going to come and help you, of being the powerful, force for the people who's going to come out there when you're in trouble and support you with vaccines or military aid or democracy help or human rights help. They are busy destroying that. Mm-hmm. And there is no amount of money that can do that. It would take only what they're doing now, which is basically a takeover of the American government, which is what they've done with Donald Trump. And to me, that's why we have to push back about this being about America needs to be destroyed or America's the enemy. Donald Trump is the enemy. Mm-hmm. And this regime, this illegitimate regime, which may or may not be elected fairly, they are the enemy and they need to be defeated. But the American people have given themselves to these great ideals and they need to survive. And we need to make sure that we are there to help them in the way they would be there to help other human beings as they've done over the last 70 years.
Yep, don't disagree. No, I love it, dude. You're 100% right. I think that's why people watch this. They watch this partly for a little affirmation, but they also watch it for information. NYC Falcon just commented. He goes, "Thanks for reporting this because that vaccine story isn't being reported. Pulling themselves out of vaccine pools, pulling America, pulling itself out of the ICC, pulling itself out of the World Health Organization. I mean, these are not steps that a non-isolationist state takes." These are steps that an isolationist state run by isolationist leaders, run by xenophobic dickheads, take to tell the rest of the free world, your problems are not our problems anymore. And what did Roosevelt say to Churchill the first time Churchill came banging at the door for some ships and some planes? He's like, that's on your side of the ocean, good sir. We're okay over here. We're going to stay out of it. And if you look at the growth and the respect of America over the past 70 years, up until Donald Trump got in this second time and the first time, it was born on the back of those programs. It was born on the idea that America will come and help you if you need help. And that's dead. You talk about the reputational damage or the suicide, the American reputational suicide that's going on right now. It doesn't just happen with threatening other countries' sovereignty. It happens when you decide you're no longer interested in being a good guy. It happens when you decide that you're no longer interested in helping 1.2 million babies survive malaria in countries where they can't. Yeah, I can't. It happens when you decide you're not going to be involved in helping, report international criminal activity with Russia, who's genociding Ukraine right now. It happens when you decide that you're not going to you're going to shut off Starlink or shut off intelligence sharing with Ukraine for a few weeks, just so Russia can beat the shit out of them, so you can prove a point and get a rare mineral earth deal. Yeah. That's where you lose your reputation as a nation state and a superpower. And it's not only happening, it's already happened. There aren't countries that are willing to share intelligence with the United States of America. This whole Scandalgate thing or Signalgate thing has, put a nail with a coffin, with a bullet on the reputation of the United States, the intelligence apparatus of the United States as well. So, these stories that we hear every time he decides, or that country decides, or the people that are running that country decides, that they don't want anything to do with being who they've been for the past 70 years. I feel awful for American citizens who have enjoyed that reputation, who have been proud of the American flag, to wear that flag because they're known as a country much like Canada and much bigger, much more powerful, that loves humanity and wants to help humanity. But America also got the lift of going into countries and saying, we're going to help you. We just want to put an army base and a few missiles over there. That's gone. Nobody trusts America in their backyard anymore.
I know, and think what that means. Think about how much space that gives the Chinese to grow their soft power. Look at how much space it gives the Russians, who have expanded their religious programs in Africa now. To as the soft power is removed from Africa and other parts of the world, the Russians and the Chinese are so ready to pour themselves into it. And what's even more, and we talked about vaccines. Another part of the vaccine story is, right now, there's a measles outbreak going on in America, and also now in Canada, in Southern Ontario. There's a report, and in Washington D.C.
They're called Freedom Source, by the way. I call them Freedom Source.
Well, along the way here, the new health secretary, Kennedy, has decided to appoint his head of the vaccine study that he's been promising. So the Department of Health and Human Services has promised they were going to check out what vaccines are effective and not effective. He's hired David Geyer to conduct the analysis. I don't know if you know who he is. He and his father, Mark Geyer, have published papers claiming that vaccines increase the risk of autism. It's a theory people have. It's been studied for decades, but it's really been debunked. This is the guy that he's introducing to study vaccines. This is the guy that Kennedy's going to bring in to help us figure out if we should have further vaccines. As a measles outbreak is happening in our country, in two countries, in multiple countries, you can't keep these things away just because they've got a border. It's going to impact Canadians. It's going to impact Mexicans. It's going to impact the whole part of the world now, because Americans travel so much. And you've got this ridiculous Kennedy, Health Services Secretary, who's appointing someone who's completely the worst person for this job, completely disrespected, a complete nutcase, a complete lunatic, really. And he's going to be the guy who's going to help us figure out whether we have vaccines or not. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah, you want to put the criminal in charge of the investigation, right? That's what you want to do. It happened up here the other day, too. I talk about Danielle Smith because she's a great example. In charge of Alberta, currently negotiating with MAGA to try and make Alberta the 51st state, which is unbelievable to me. She is caught in a $600 million surgery for profit scandal. where she gave sole source contracts to her biggest donor, this guy named Sam Raish. It's an ongoing RCMP investigation. There's another one that the RCMP have just launched into her, but for other reasons. So she's got two RCMP investigations. Now, the AHS, or the healthcare scandal investigation, she almost really tried to put one of the people that benefited from those contracts in charge of the actual investigation and writing the report.
It's so Trumpy. It's so perfect.
It's truly amazing to me. But you know, the funny part is that that's you know, when you have all the power, you can do that. And we're
Yeah.
you know we as people have put so much faith into elected officials over the years. We just take it for granted, right? We just, yeah, okay, I guess it sounds good. And we don't look into people like David Geyer. We don't do the due diligences. So, okay, who's this guy or who's this woman that's doing this investigation into these people? Or who's this guy who's in charge of filing this report? And when it comes down to it, generally speaking, that's how politics works at this level, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, let's minimize damage. Let's put one of our guys in charge of the report on vaccines who hates vaccines and whose dad is anti-vaccine about the efficacy of vaccines. Well, what are you going to get back? You're going to get back a report that says vaccines are bad. Don't worry about it. And measles are just the tip of the iceberg, dude. Like they had an Ebola outbreak in New York.
Yeah.
You know, measles are the tip of the iceberg. We got polio running around out there again now. We have all kinds of diseases that
Black
we
Death or something
banished
is
to the
back. I remember.
yeah, the plague is back. And it's like you're like, okay, well, you know, this is the tack that the United States of America takes, but they're only taking this tack because they have children running the government. They have idiots in charge. It is a cacistocracy. We've
Yeah, but they have
said that
idiots in
more
charge
again.
that are being put in there for purposeful reasons. And at the end of the day, it goes back to this idea of completely dehumanizing people. Like they don't care that they're going to kill 1.2 million babies. They don't care that Americans are going to be dying, by a large amount because of the cancellation of vaccine programs. They don't care about the resurgence of measles and whatever because they'll largely be protected. And the kind of people that are going to die are the kind of people they don't care about. That
That they want to die.
they
Yes.
want them to die. They're expensive for the states. They're a cost for the state, and they just want to get rid of them. And that's the tragedy of this American regime. And it's not a legitimate regime. Things they're doing are not American values. They're breaking the Constitution. Their appointees are completely corrupt and compromised.
Yeah.
Nothing about this makes me feel good. Number I want to talk about
Three.
Tesla. I want to talk about this one other story that's really, really important. It's a bit depressing. But I've been following the story of Jessica Aber. Have you been following her? She's the former U.S. attorney for Virginia. She was found dead a few days ago. Under mysterious circumstances. She is a remarkable person, and I'll tell you in a minute why. But she's also when she died, my initial instinct was, wait, she's not a Trump appointee, she's a Biden appointee. Trump she was investigating Trump and that world as well. Plus, he wanted her to leave. Basically, the intimation is that there was pressure for her to leave, and that's why she resigned from the U.S. Attorney's Office. But this is a 43-year-old woman who should not have died. The thing which gave me some pause in that initial reporting is that some of her friends said that she had a medical condition and that she did maybe die from that medical condition. Now, it turns out that medical condition is epilepsy, and she does have epileptic seizures, but had epileptic seizures, which I know can be deadly, but I don't know if it's deadly at that rate for 43-year-olds, and I don't know enough about the disease to pause to really judge that. But there's now a statement from her family acknowledging the epilepsy, but saying that they are really looking to see the medical examiner's report in the coming weeks. It says, and that their family is in shock and grief, and I'm sure they are. This is a very big loss to the DOJ, is a very big loss to this family. But then you look into the kind of cases this incredible prosecutor was able to prosecute in January, just before her resignation. Aber helped put Asif Rahman, a former CIA analyst, behind bars for leaking top secret information about Israeli military plans against Iran. That landed up all over social media. You may remember it put many lives at risk, as she said at the time. But then in November of 2024, she took down a U.S. technology firm that was actually being run by the Russians. It was a Kremlin front. and it was and the compelling and basically it was a very complicated story, but she took down that firm. And then this is the thing that really got me, is that there was the war crime indictment. Aber's office charged 4 Russian-linked individuals with torturing and unlawfully detaining U.S. national in Ukraine. And so she was partly responsible for these war crimes against certain Russians showing up at the ICC. And that to me is another indication that we don't know for sure why and how she died. I mean, I think it's okay to say, let's wait for the coroner's report, but it's suspicious to me. These are the kinds of people who would feel nothing about killing this bright young woman, and without a government that would actually prosecute that, or an FBI that would really investigate that. These kind of people are easily targets in the United States, and that's what worries me about the story. Is that it's one of these stories that may just disappear under a cloud of official statements, and it's worrying the hell out of me. So people should stay on the story and really let people know that this is a big story, and we need to keep following it.
Yeah, they said she died of natural causes. I'm just catching up on this story, but it's interesting, and I'll get to Epstein in just a second.
Yeah.
But you said she died of natural causes. I just did a little Googling. Not a lot of deaths from epileptic seizures to your point. And then to just say, yeah, she had epilepsy, but she died of natural causes. It's suspicious. And you consider her scope of work. You consider that she was dogged. You consider that the incoming Trump DOJ appointees hated her. You consider that Trump ended all investigations into Russia ongoing, like within the first 2 weeks of his administration. You consider the fact that that was job one for Donald Trump after he got in. Let's stop all the noise when it comes to Russia. We don't want to piss off Putin at all. And I didn't know that about her last charge. I had no idea that her last charge was going after 4 Russian nationals who tortured an American citizen. I didn't know that she went after a tech company owned by Russians as well. But the interesting part here for me is when you tell me the story off the top of my head, and I do a little quick cursory reading. Would you really put it past this administration to kill somebody who knew something? And I go back to the Epstein thing, which I mentioned earlier. They managed to get into the Manhattan Correctional Facility. They managed to turn off all the lights, turn off all the cameras. They managed to get a bunch of security guards and probably 100 different doors to be able to get into the area where Jeffrey Epstein was, to kill Jeffrey Epstein. He didn't hang himself. We all know he didn't hang himself. He wasn't acting like a guy that was going to hang himself. The autopsy report came back, said the hyoid bone could only be done due to strangulation and not self-strangulation. It had to be someone reefing on whatever it was that he allegedly hung himself with. So the Epstein thing really plays here in my mind because of how secure he was, or they thought he was, and what he knew. What did she knew?
Well, that's
She
the
wasn't
thing. I mean, was
secure.
she still taking this information, especially the war crimes case? I mean, was she still perhaps working with the International Criminal Court around that? And Putin's biggest problem around the world right now is that he's known as a war criminal. He can't really operate in the world. If he's able to eliminate one of those big cases against him and against the Russians, and and send a chill down the in the DOJ or in other justice departments where people might be prosecuting these kinds of cases, he would do it. And Putin has killed many people in America in the last 8 years since the Trump-Russia scandal began. There have been many, many bodies found in various suspicious circumstances, just like this. Maybe Epstein is one of them. That it makes me really nervous that this is where we're at. And because the DOJ is so castrated right now, because the new DOJ is run by this crazy woman, Kash Patel is in charge of the FBI, and this case may not get properly investigated or prosecuted. And what a horrible thing for her, what a horrible thing for the family, but just a horrible thing for justice, because which attorney is going to be looking at these cases in the future? None of them want to touch it if this is what happens.
No, and to your point too, you consider the lift that Donald Trump has given Vladimir Putin. He is operating with impunity probably everywhere in the United States today.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, which it is, he's operating with impunity in Ukraine. He's operating with impunity. So, you've got all the mill bloggers and the pundits that are thanking Donald Trump for allowing Vladimir Putin and the Putin regime to be able to conduct their business. That was another thing I heard from Solonov the other day. Julia Davis had a great tweet about it, and so to your point, yeah, I
Sorry, I
mean,
missed that. What did they say?
oh, basically, hey, thanks to Donald Trump, we are allowed to continue to, do what we do, enact our plan of, growing our great empire. So whatever that means, what does that fall under? Does it fall under, hey, we're allowed to go kill people in the United States now, and the United States government's in our pockets, and so we're allowed to do kind of whatever we want? Or does it mean, hey, we're allowed to keep striking Ukraine? That could apply to a bunch of different things. You know how Russian messaging
Well,
works,
it
right?
seems like Trump made an agreement the other day to drop sanctions against Russia
Yeah.
as part of this deal. This is a really strange ceasefire deal, which is not really a ceasefire deal, but if
You talking about
if
the Black Sea, the
yeah,
Black Fleet ceasefire? Now this one's interesting because to your point, I just want to add a little context. Ukraine has sunk the Black Fleet. It doesn't
yeah.
exist anymore. It's gone. And so, in return for which I found fucking fascinating, a ceasefire in the Black Sea in the Crimea region, limited ceasefire. Donald Trump said he was going to ease sanctions, but there is no Black Sea Fleet because, as you know, Ukraine has sunk them all.
And the yes, I know it's a very good point you're making, but also the sanctions that he's talking about lifting are the sanctions of the the all the assets that were obtained by the West that were being used or would be about to be used to fund the Ukrainian battle. It's those sanctions that he's looking at lifting, plus all the limitations on some of these oligarchs from operating in the United States and around the world, in exchange for this limited, crazy, not really existing ceasefire. I mean, maybe Zelensky's just caught in a terrible position and he's buying time, and that's why he agreed to this thing. But it seems to me that Trump has really given away every leverage America has to Vladimir Putin already, and it's just another sad example of why this regime is so illegitimate. And the longer we allow them to continue, the longer we allow them to continue to operate like this, the worse the situation is. The only slight silver linings here is that maybe he has bought some time, enough time for the French to figure out how they're going to, be more active in the skies around Ukraine and maybe put up a more significant defense for Ukraine.
That'd be nice. There's your dog, by the
Sorry
way.
about the dog. It's Boomer saying
Boomer.
hello.
He doesn't sound like much of a boomer to me.
Boomer's a very little dog, but he's a big. He's a small dog with a big name,
Yeah.
so that's why we called him that. So the number one story, then I was going to talk a little bit more about the Hegseth thing, but let's talk about Elon Musk.
What a great day in Canada for Elon Musk. There were conversations that were being had during the leadership. That's okay, dude. Let him bark. Let Boomer bark. There were conversations that were being had during the Liberal leadership run. So here in Canada, we're in the middle of an election. It's a really short election period in Canada. You get like 30, 35 days to run an election. In the United States, it lasts for fucking years. And you all know Pierre Poilievre is taking a back seat. He's lost in the polls. Mark Carney is surging ahead yet again. Chrystia Freeland, the one who basically put a bullet in Justin Trudeau's attempt to run it back again for a fourth time, was really bullish during that leadership run on going after Elon Musk. All of her platforms of becoming a leader included a bunch of different stuff, but they always had a couple of Tesla punitive things in there, right? So one of them was 100% tariffs on Tesla. Another one was possibly banning Tesla sales. Another one was quite possibly banning Elon Musk from doing business in Canada because of how he was treating Canada, going after Canada's sovereignty, at one point saying Canada is not a real country, when there was a petition going around which garnered, I believe, 1.1 million signatures to pull Elon Musk's Canadian citizenship. Yes, he has one. His mother bought it for him when he came to town because she was born in Canada and he was at Queen's University. So today something happened that I thought was really fascinating. And I wrote a piece on it on my Substack. You can read it, deanblundell.substack.com, about what Canada did, which was a response for two things. And those two things are very, very fucking significant. One, of course, tariffs, disrespect of Canada, the ongoing bastardization of this country's reputation by Elon Musk and him being involved, basically being the president of the United States and being involved in tariff in Canada. But the other thing that I thought was really interesting is that not a lot of people paid attention to it in the States. I wrote about it. It got huge traffic on Substack. But Elon Musk scammed Canada out of $43 million in a 4-day period about a month and a half ago. So Canada included this investigation into them looking into his business practices in Canada. And today was fascinating because Canada froze Tesla's $43 million rebate payments. They've barred Tesla from any future EV rebates, any credit programs. They have effectively banned Elon Musk from taking part in any EV goodwill credit rebate program forever. Now they're also considering going after Starlink, which I thought was really interesting. And this was Chrystia Freeland, who's now the transportation minister, who's going after Elon Musk. And why this is interesting is because, as we talked about it on the podcast before, not just the tariffs, but it gives rise, or it gives you kind of some context into how much of a fraud he is, where he claimed, and Tesla Canada claimed, to have sold something like 8,300 vehicles in a weekend, which qualified them for an immediate $43 million one-time payment from the government of Canada. That meant, if you did the math, out of 4 dealerships in Ontario and Quebec, they would have had to sell a car every 1.4 minutes. 1.4 minutes over the span of a long weekend. And so they did a little investigation, realized not only was that not the case, but these cars that they apparently sold, they can't track. They don't know where they are. So Canada immediately stopped payment on that $43 million rebate to Tesla. And then they went further and they basically put EV credit sanctions on Tesla and Elon Musk and said, keep it up, dude. Starlink's next. And as you know, these are 2 really important assets to Elon Musk, right? SpaceX is fun. That's government subsidy money. But all the money he gets from Tesla, he gets from Tesla. It's his little piggy bank that he spreads around for super PACs, little piggy bank he spreads around to buy Twitter, leverages what his share price, gets foreign money, and then he does his business basically with the Tesla bank account, which, by the way, had 1.4 billion missing on their ledger about a week ago. You and I were talking about it in the FiveStack. So what Canada has done is absolutely crush his brand here in this country. And they've put a fence around him financially and said, no. You're going to be like any other car company. Any goodwill we had for what you were trying to accomplish is gone, because not only are you a criminal, not only do we not trust you, not only do we believe you're a foreign asset, but you're also defrauding the Canadian government and the Canadian taxpayer, because those are taxpayer dollars, 43 million taxpayer dollars that we're using because we're just really nice about the climate here and we want to encourage people to buy EVs. Well, now he's banned from that program. Not for a bit. This isn't a timeout. He's banned forever. Tesla is banned forever. And what did that do to his stock price? It's down 21% today.
Oh wow,
21%.
that's big news. Look, I've long advocated that Elon Musk's entire empire needs to be targeted. He is the reason we're in this big mess right now. He's the reason that Donald Trump was able to get reelected. He's the reason that Vladimir Putin was able to still have Donald Trump in his pocket, through his support through the election campaign and through the disinformation campaign. I've done many shows about this. People can go check it out. My investigations into how Russia really won last year's election for Donald Trump. It was all Elon Musk and Elon Musk's disinformation campaigns and his manipulation of Twitter. We've seen how he's regular contacts with Vladimir Putin and company. We've seen his reproducing of memes that were produced by the Social Design Agency, which is a Russian intelligence front. Mm-hmm. We know that Musk works for the Russians. He gets a lot of money from the Chinese as well, but their interests are often the same thing. And so, if we go after Musk, we really are able to cut off a lot of the Putin bandwidth that goes into Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And that's why Canada really needs to be applauded for this. This is a terrific move. It's the kind of policy that makes sense. It's a targeted kind of sanction that doesn't hurt everybody. It just hurts the people who really need to be hurt. Elon Musk's empire needs to collapse. It is an absolute stain on humanity that this man even is allowed to still operate, because he's basically sucking money out of the US government and sucking money out of the Chinese government to keep his enterprises afloat. Yeah. And, without all that money, he'd be nothing. And what is he doing? He's busy cutting everyone's social security. He's busy cutting everyone's Medicaid. He's cutting 1.2 million babies vaccine programs around the world. This man is an evil man. His values are screwed. He should not be anywhere near any government authority. And just to remind everyone, unelected, has this incredible authority which no one has ceded to him. He works outside of the government, but has an incredible impact on the government. This man is just a real danger to America and the free world. So, and he's high, says Terran. Which, if you saw that thing with the
with the forks,
cutlery
he's
the other
balancing
day.
forks with his new
Yeah.
baby mama at Mar-a-Lago. Like, he was all fucking fried out of his mind.
Yeah, and everyone's like,
I
everyone's
will
gathering
say,
around him like, dude,
I
are you
will
okay?
say,
You're not doing well.
dude, it's
You
one of the
know,
great videos I've ever seen. That one
yeah.
and the night of the joint speech where he was standing there looking around with no friends, drinking water furiously. You know,
Yeah.
he is so
It's like-
fried all the fucking time that
it's like an insane asylum,
Yeah.
Mar-a-Lago. It looks like a total insane asylum. It looks like they just
Oh,
like packed all
dude.
the weirdos into one place, and then just put them, watching them do terrible things, like wondering.
Yeah.
It's really, it must be a nut place to be.
Oh, you know what? I envision Mar-a-Lago to have its own ketamine dispensary. I envision Mar-a-Lago to have all the cocaine you can find. I envision Mar-a-Lago to have STDs creeping around every corner.
Oh my God,
I envision Mar-a-Lago to be this like the Hades of morals, where you can do anything, you can snort anything, you can bang anything. You just can't upset your leader. Like, that's the one thing you can't do. And outside of that, everything's off limits. It's like
we should
Club
do one of those
54
like
for fucking
blue
morons.
lights. Those blue light investigations you sometimes see on the Discovery Channel when they figure out all the germs in that place. It would be disgusting what is going on in Mar-a-Lago. Anything near Donald Trump would be disgusting.
It's like a geriatric Diddy party. That's what I envision. I envision Mar-a-Lago
with a bunch of Republicans. So there you go. So it's
You know what I get a kick out of too are all the octogenarian women that have had so much fucking plastic surgery, and they're put together with pins and needles and hair clips, and they're all wigged up, and they all got the fake bombs, and there are so many incredible pictures. Like, you could literally look at Mar-a-Lago party pictures forever.
Yeah.
Because it's all just these women who are like, I swear to God, I had my best days in the 40s, but I'm hanging in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Whatever's after Cougar, that's what they're doing. It's the stage after. You're talking about the Kimberly Guilfoyle effect of what happens to you when you become a Trump woman. I mean, it's that sort of like ultra plastic surgery,
dude. And when she was with Newsom, she looked beautiful. She was so cute. And then she just lost her mind. She got into the coke. John Jr. got into her. She started dressing like she was, getting ready for a boudoir shoot every day. Yeah. She's
really
screaming and yelling. But dude, now she's the ambassador to Greece.
On that upside down note, that's the end of the FiveStack tonight. Dean Blundell is at deanblundell.substack.com. I'm at narrative.org, narrativ.org. Please subscribe to our Substack so you can get updates from us whenever we go live. We are doing the FiveStack every day for a week, and we've made it halfway through the week, so that's good. We'll do 2 more days.
We both showed up. It's pretty incredible when we both show up.
We both showed up, and everyone else showed up, so that's really nice. So thanks everybody for being here today on the FiveStack live at 5:30 on Substack, Monday to Friday this week. But you can also check us out in our pre-recorded states on your Substack feed or my Substack feed, and wherever you get your podcasts on Apple or Spotify podcasts. And that's it for the show tonight. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye, all.